My name is Momin and welcome to Deep Cut Country. This is a channel where I want to talk about all the amazing deep cuts in country music because there's a lot of amazing songs out there, but I think nobody talks about them. Nobody really talks about the writers on them. And I think every artist has some of those songs that go unnoticed in their catalog, but I think are also very important songs in their catalog. So I thought I would try and talk about them and bring some more attention to them. And I also want to talk about all the different parts of different singers' careers where I think those are aspects that don't get highlighted or we don't have enough information on them, but I want to try and just speculate and see what's going on over there. So, on today's radar, we have Carly Pearce. I thought she is someone who is very prominent in country music right now. Of course, she is probably one of the top female artists in some ways, and she's had her last era has been just a little bit up and down and a little bit choppy. So I want to try and understand that and have also an overview of her career, not necessarily in the sense of or what success she has had or not, but just to see exactly what led up to the hummingbird era and why it may have sort of underperformed. Overall, I think Carly Pearce positions herself as an artist who writes a lot of sad songs and who really digs deep into those vulnerable feelings, and she talks about things that maybe maybe other artists are sometimes scared to show as well. So, and she's mentioned in many interviews that she's kind of like a sucker for a sad song, and she does them really well as well. To be fair, I think Every Little Thing was an amazing introduction to her career. I think it represents her overall sense of music, her lyricism, and the sadness thread in all her music pretty well. And we see that up till the hummingbird era as well, but I think that's where it started to get a little problematic. So with Every Little Thing, of course, I think we she was immediately kind of like established as, hey, this isn't an artist that is up and coming, and she has good music, she has a good eye for lyrics. Even the second single, Hide the Wine, I think was a good choice because it immediately showed a different side, which was more flirty and playful. And the song is quite nice as well. It's country to the core. But it was confusing because that era ended just after those two singles. There wasn't a third single, even though her songs, If My Name Was Whiskey or Dare You or Dare Ya, were really kind of like they streamed really well. They were very popular amongst the crowd as well, especially If My Name Was Whiskey. I think that could have been at least another top 10 hit for her. But Hide the Wine didn't make it to the top 10, and it was a top 20 hit, I believe. And she moved on to the next era pretty quickly. Maybe she wanted to just go on to like a new era because she was feeling differently. But Every Little Thing, the album had some good deep cuts. Again, Dara was a good one. I Need a Ride Home is, I think, like a it fits Carly Pearce's like personality and career also very well. I think it's a very well written song, very emotional as well, and it touches on all the right notes. Doing It Right, I think, was also another one that could have been a good single, and I think one of the more kind of like successful pop moments, in my opinion, on the album, I think, was Feel Something. Even though I think that's kind of like a song that maybe a lot of people might not like, they might think it's a bit too loud, even Carly Pearce might not like that song that much. I don't know, I don't think it fits her style now, but I don't know, there's something about it that has always, like, whenever I listen to it, it kind of does get stuck in my head. And I think it could have been even like a good successful choice, not in the sense of representing her artistry, but just as a good radio single. But then I think the first blip in her career came with the lead single of the second album, which was Closer to You. Now, that song is kind of like, I don't know, I think it's probably one of her least successful songs. Not on the charts, but I think just in execution. I think it's one of her least successful ones because it's kind of like this choppy talk singing kind of thing. And I think Carly Pearce is one of those singers where her voice really, I think, is showcased in more mid-tempo songs, but also that can be a bit fast, but they're a bit stretched out. Anywhere where she gets to stretch out her vocal, I think is where she gets to showcase her talents the most. Closer to You, I don't think fit, like it did not fit her style. It did not fit her style of singing. I don't think it suited her. I remember listening to it when it came out, and I was like, I don't know. I felt extremely underwhelmed, and I mean, this is no offense. I know she was at that place in her time, but I also feel like it was just a throwaway kind of song. So, and it's also, I think, like probably like the least successful single that she has ever released. So, and maybe that speaks to exactly why there was some disconnect over there. And then we have I Hope You're Happy Now, which is a faster paced song, but again, it's a sad song from her catalog. And of course, like it's probably like, I think, one of the most successful singles, if not the most successful single of her career. And it really again showcased her writing and put her back in that spot of, okay, she's still someone who is successful and she has it. I feel like if she wanted to go with a more upbeat lead single, like I think it could have been Lightning in the Bottle. I think that was, even though it's a slower song, but it's more kind of like happier, and I think it's a good vocal. It really is a good vocal, especially in the last half where she starts to kind of like have that higher background vocal by her own self. That really hits the spot. It wasn't something that really hit me the first time when I heard that song, but I think on repeated listens and when I was doing just some research for this video as well, I was like, okay, this is actually like a really good song, and I put it in my Spotify playlist as well. And the other one was with her ex-husband Michael Ray, the song called Finish Your Sentences. Now, I have mixed feelings about the song in the sense of like it's not, I don't think it's an amazing song, and I think it's also just the kind of song that people probably criticize as pop country, where there's again that kind of like choppy talk singing-y kind of feeling. But just from a standpoint of mainstream success, I think it could have maybe done well as a good kind of like pop mainstream country single. And plus, they had that kind of hype around their relationship as well at the time, so it could have done well on radio. Although we don't know exactly when they started to drift apart, so I mean that could be a reason why they didn't go with the collaboration moment of the album. Halfway Home is also one of my favorite songs on that record, but I feel like that would not have been a good lead single choice. Or I don't know, maybe it could have been a good single choice, but I think it's also just too slow and drag on-y for radio. I'm not sure, but I personally just love that song, and I do think it's also one of the more well-streamed songs on the album. The first album and the second album, like aesthetically, because we also now live at a time where each era has like a different color and a different aesthetic kind of thing. I think the second album, which was her self-titled album, I think could have had like a better aesthetic as well, just to make it stand out more. But it was, I don't know, it was kind of like in the same color palette ish as the first one, so it didn't really stand out that much. And this becomes an important point when I go on to talking about Hummingbird as well. But yeah, I think this was the first time where there was a little bit of a blip in her career, even though I Hope You're Happy became like a big moment of her chart success and everything. So it was, but it was still kind of like mixed and choppy because we weren't exactly sure what was going on. And then of course like her divorce was announced as well, and this era ended just after like two singles as well. So just as a consumer, as someone who's a fan of Carly Pearce, I think so far up till her second album, I was still a bit confused in terms of what was going on of in terms of like the marketing, a little bit of a lack of success, but also some success, finishing both album eras after two singles, not going deeper into that. I don't know. I was still a little bit like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how they're trying to position her. She was also trying to go for some of those pop moments as well. But at the same time, then there were certain moments where I feel like were good and country, but then I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. But it was just like very there were good parts, but then there were confusing parts in all of that, and some bad parts for me, like Closer to You. Oh, very quickly, I think the self-titled album had one song which was a really good pop moment. In fact, I think that would have been a better lead single than Closer to You, which was Heart Going Out of Its Mind. I think that song is probably one of the most successful pop moments on that album. I think it's a clever, fun, flirty lyric. I think it's very upbeat. I think it would have been a good escalation in sound in that way from Every Little Thing, Hide the Wine, and then the song. I think it would have been great to showcase that she can also do fast paced, upbeat songs and still have a good vocal on it and still have a lot of personality on it as well. And if she wanted to start off on a I'm in love note, I think that would have been like a really good I'm in love note to start with. So I think that song just got unfortunately buried under the rug because obviously then she fell out of love as well, and that song is written about probably like a very specific moment or a time in the relationship, and she, I don't know, she might not want to sing it again. I think it was a missed opportunity. Then we come to her 29 era, which was, I think, arguably the most successful era she's had, also the most consistent in terms of positioning, marketing, and really highlighting who Carly Pearce is and what her artistry is. It was, I think, like all the singles were very successful as well from that album. Again, really good songs. Production wise, I think it was also her most cohesive album. Although I think Hummingbird is as well, but again, we'll come to that. Next Girl, even though it wasn't a top 10 single, but I think I remember seeing the promo for that song when it was just the glass of whiskey, the paper napkin, Next Girl written on it in like a, I think it was kind of like a lipstick circle kind of thing, maybe. Or I'm just imagining the lipstick, I'm not sure. But it was a really good, I think, promo in terms of there was no like written text introducing the song. Carly Pearce's face was nowhere to be seen, but it was just that, I think, 10-15 second banjo instrumental of the song, which was immediately like, oh, she's going back to like a very country sound, and she's going back to that very kind of like earthy, rootsy-ish kind of sound, which was, I think, as a fan, again, knowing that that's Carly Pearce's wheelhouse was a very exciting thing to witness. And then obviously they announced that Shane McAnally was one of the producers, which who again like is someone I absolutely love. And his country sensibility, especially, I think, is really amazing when he works with an artist. So overall, like the promo for that was amazing. The video was well shot. It was again another upbeat song, but it had like kind of like a sad but sassy-ish note to it. Really different kind of like personality side that we saw of Carly Pearce on that. And I think despite not being like a top 10 single, I think it still added to her overall persona and artistry and her perception of how people saw her. We go on to Never Wanted to Be That Girl, which again was a very successful single as well. It won her the first Grammy and Ashley McBride along with it. Again, I think it was a really good single choice and it added onto the entire narrative around the divorce. And I think this was probably the album where coming out with just sad songs probably worked because of the era she was in anyway. What he didn't do was one of her best streamers, even when it wasn't a single. It was probably one of the most successful streaming songs that she still has. And it's a good melody, the writing is good, everything about it, I think I can't really fault it for anything, really, to be honest. But really good song. I think the other good single choices could have been on the more upbeat side, could have been Diamondback, which she performed on the CMT Awards. And I think it was a really good song to showcase during that era because it It was still that very country sound, but had that kind of like sassy message to it, and again, good play on lyrics as well. You're Drinking My Problem, even though that may have been a bit too bluesy for country music. I don't know if they would, like, if country radio would have played it on the radio, but again, good lyric, funny, fun, and talks about like a serious thing, but in a, in a fun way. So that could have been a good single choice as well. Again, those are some of the deep cuts that I feel like would have worked really well. But then she had, a lot of other songs like Dear Miss Loretta, which she performed on so many different occasions, and I think is still, from that era, is still like a recognizable song. She performed 29 on The Voice. And so she really, I think, across all her media performances, she showcased the breadth of work that she had done on this album. And there was a lot of good songwriting, and the country sound is something that I think everyone essentially fell in love with, and that's what everyone came to expect from her as well. By the way, Show Me Around, that she wrote for Busby, is in recent years, I think, along with maybe Chris Young's Drowning, the piano version, I think these are probably two of the most successful, successful in terms of their execution. I think these are some of the best songs written about someone passing away, and thinking of them and really processing that grief. Show Me Around, again, it's this, thankfully it's a low-key-ish production, it's not this big production that they did on the radio single version of Drowning, which I think was an absolute crime, I feel like. But Show Me Around is this amazing, heartfelt song. Again, not maybe for radio, but really kind of like a hard-hitting deep cut. And I think she should perform it every now and then, because I'm sure there are a lot of people in the audience who want to listen to that song. So yeah. But then we come to the Hummingbird era. Now, this, I would say, in some ways, is even more confusing for me than the first two eras combined. Because I can still find some sense in thinking, like, how they operated in the first two eras. With this one, I'm quite confused. The 29 era obviously brought Carly Pearce a lot of success, even in terms of winning awards and winning Female Vocalist of the Year, both at the ACMs and the CMAs. So she was going at a really good streak with award shows as well, being nominated as well, everything. And then we have the Hummingbird era, which starts off with We Don't Fight Anymore, which, okay, I have thoughts about that song. It's an amazing song. I love it. I really do like the song genuinely. I also think it's a topic that does not get covered a lot in songs in general, where it's like we're so drifted apart from each other that we don't even, argue anymore. And I think it's such a great way to talk about the death of a relationship. But coming off of an entire sad album, and also the last single from the previous era, which was her self-titled album, was also kind of like a sad song, and then going on to another lead single that was a sad song. I'm not saying people have to compromise on their artistry completely, but I do think you, obviously, when it comes to radio success and everything, you have to be a bit more strategic. And even the chart run of We Don't Fight Anymore was so long drawn out as well. And it kind of was like the song, because the song is like very slow paced, and it's, even the vocal is dragged out, not in a bad way. It serves the song. In fact, that is exactly what makes a song such a good listen and such a good vocal. But I feel like it took too much time on the charts as well, and I don't know. I don't think it was the right lead single choice. I understand Chris Stapleton was on it, and probably that made it like another important factor in making it the lead single. because obviously it's Chris Stapleton, so the expectation is that hey, this single is going to be very successful, and it was successful. It streamed well. I think it was a top 10 hit as well, if not a top 5 hit. But I think the lead up to the album release, along with like having a sad song climb the charts again, was just so choppy and confusing, because I think at some point the album was going to be named, or was named, Music Made Me Do It, which was one of the songs that she released as a promo single leading up to the album release. But then they switched gears, and then there was Heels Over Head, which, by the way, excellent song and excellent production. Fault Line was also released, and it was like, okay, these are really good country bluegrassy songs that are being released, and I get the picture she's trying to build. But again, I was very confused as to where it's going, because the album rollout was getting dragged on and on and on and on, I feel like. And it was constantly being teased as well, that something's coming, something's happening, some song is going to be released, some album is about to come. And I understand, of course, like things can happen. People want to write more, or people may feel like, okay, the sound that I was going for is not the sound I want anymore. I want to change it. I want to write more songs. The message that I want to give through the album is different. But again, it was quite choppy that way. And eventually, when Hummingbird was announced as the album title and the album cover, I remember looking at the album cover and I was like, I'm sorry, but I love her. I absolutely do. And the 29 era, I think, was absolutely excellent in terms of its aesthetic, color palette, the way it was, all the pictures and everything. But this album cover, I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. And I'm someone who is very drawn towards album art, and it can also become a motivating factor for me to listen or not listen to an album sometimes, to be honest. I'll be very honest. When I saw this album cover, I was like, I don't know. I don't know. It was also in the same color family as the first couple of albums, that yellow brown ish kind of like, color palette. Even the hummingbird itself was so blurry on the album cover. I feel like the album cover that she made for the deluxe version that she released just a while ago, a month ago or something, I think that was excellent. I think that should have been the main album cover. In fact, I would say even a lot of the promo shots that came with the Hummingbird era, I think were far better than the actual album cover picture. I think it could have been done better. This era, I think, should have been started with "Truck on Fire" because again, it's that classic sassy song, and I think it's a different kind of sassy than Carly Pearce had done before. It was an upbeat track, and I think it would have introduced the album on a really good, different note compared to 29. I think it could have been like a far better radio success, starting off in terms of a faster chart run, and maybe being able to reach a higher position as well. I think it's been ages since Hummingbird was released, and Truck on Fire is just the second single, and it's still on the charts. I think it's maybe top 15 right now or top 20 right now. I think they will aim for another top 10 hit, but the album itself also did not even reach the top 10 on the country charts. Like, forget the Billboard 200, but it wasn't even top 10 on the country charts, which was so. I think, again, as a fan, it was very disappointing and sad to see, as Carly Pearce being someone who was finally receiving her flowers and receiving attention and being on this career high, and then the next album that could have been more successful or equally successful, just kind of like, at least in terms of metrics, kind of not doing well. Not doing well. So she's had a very successful tour out of this album, which I'm really happy for. She went overseas as well. She went to UK and Europe as well. From what it seems like, the reviews and everything were great. The fans had a great time. She had a great time. So that was good. She had a world tour of this album, so that's kind of like a promotion. But in terms of other songs, and the album itself, I don't know, it was just very confusing. So I don't know. This is where I want to really kind of speculate and even get your opinion on this as well, because I'm a bit lost as to why this happened. For me, the reason I am looking at the lead up to Hummingbird is to see that is it the sad song narrative that people got tired of? Is it just that the marketing for the lead single for Hummingbird, or the confusing marketing from Country Music Made Me Do It to Hummingbird itself, did that make this album sort of perform not that great commercially? Was it the single choices that, made it suffer? I don't know. I don't know. She wasn't even nominated for Female Artist of the Year at these ACMs this month, as far as I know. I think it was Kelsey Ballerini, Ella Langley, and Casey Musgraves, Megan Maroney, Lainey Wilson. I think these were the 5 nominees. She wasn't even nominated, which is again sad to see, because like she had like a successful world tour, but because she hasn't had good commercial success with the album or with the singles that much, I guess she didn't really rise to the top. And I feel like this era is also going to end after 2 singles because of how dragged out it became. I think Fault Line also could have been a good lead single, because again it was fun, upbeat. It was a very classic old timey country way of talking about being in a bad relationship, and a lot of like country greats have done it in the same style. Um, Oklahoma, I think, is an amazing song. I think it's probably one of my favorite written songs of Carly Pearce's career. I don't know. There's something about that song that I feel like it's such a gem on the song. I think people don't talk about it. I think people don't see the amazingness of it. The production is amazing. The lyric, the melody, like that part where she's like, I don't know where the hell you are. Oh, like it's just like, I can listen to that over and over and over again. It's, by the way, that's kind of like my shower song as well. But Oklahoma is just an absolute beauty, and I think if she also wanted to do like a serious-ish song as one of the singles, Oklahoma would have been great. Overall, I think this album, because it's very bluegrassy as well, but it's also a slow burn. I love personally slow burn albums. I think they really grow on you. I think a lot of the songs on this album grew on me over time. Pretty Please is now, I think, one of my most listened to songs on that album, I think. Things I Don't Chase, again, is another amazing song on that album, which really grew on me about, I think, a year after the album was released. I mean, I listened to the album when it came out, but at the time, nothing really stuck for me except for a few songs. But I was like, I don't know. Again, because of the marketing and everything, I was also just a little uninterested in some ways, I hate to admit. But then I gave the album a second listen. Then I was like, okay, this has some good songs. And a third listen, fourth listen. I was like, okay, this is a good, strong album. It is a really strong album. The album is not bad at all by any means. I think it's just as strong as 29, genuinely. In fact, I can think of a couple of songs on 29 that maybe also could have left off the record as well. Not because they're bad songs, but I think it was like, oh, maybe, not as strong as all the others. In Hummingbird, I can't really think of any song that I would say, okay, we need to leave this song off, because I think every single song is so solid in itself and shows a side of the relationship, or talks about a certain feeling in a different way, which I think was important to the entire story that she's trying to talk about over here. Even the deluxe version of the album that she released with like 3 more songs, I think those songs were really strong and solid, have their own character and personality. They fit into the overall sound of the larger record. So as an album, it's like 10 on 10 for me, almost. But the way it was executed, I'm confused. So I would like your thoughts on what you think went wrong with this. era and why it did not perform that well. The other thing with Carly Pearce is also that with this album not performing that well was also the rise of other female artists in the genre. I think particularly Megan Maroney and Ella Langley, and of course Lainey Wilson being on top of the world right now, which I think kind of put Carly Pearce in a little bit of a backseat, unfortunately, in that sense. I mean, she could have been in the front seat still if she had more commercial prominence, but yeah, I think with other female artists rising as well, and unfortunately, in country music, there's only like a handful of female artists that can be successful at the same time. Hopefully, that can change with the streaming model now, but that's just how it is. But I think my main question now remains with Carly Pearce's career. And by the way, she's about to release like a new album at some point as well, because she's recording one and she's finishing it up. I think she probably will announce it towards the end of this year. Will she continue to have the same commercial success that she had with 29? Will she be able to replicate that? Will she remain one of the top billing female artists, at least in terms of like award shows, bookings, and whatnot? Or is this where now she's an artist in her 30s, a female artist in her 30s, and her career will start to kind of like slightly dwindle? I don't know. I want her to have more success. I want her to be more prominent for many more years. I think she's a really strong voice in country music. I think we need her. I think we need her style of music, and I think we need her style of writing. But it also happens that sometimes, especially with female artists, that they have a unsuccessful era, and then they sometimes are not able to reach that same level again. So I don't know. I kind of worry for her, and she's just like 4 albums in. I mean, I would love to see her be successful even till, I don't know, album 8 and 9 at least, so that she has like an even wider catalog of successful music. And yes, of course, like commercial success is not everything, but we know that yes, it is also it's an important factor. It can't just all be critical acclaim. There needs to be, especially for female artists to stay relevant and have long careers, I think they need commercial success. That's just my opinion. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think of this. Would love to hear from fans of Carly Pearce who have probably followed her from the very beginning and who maybe have more insights than I do. I'm just an amateur guy who is trying to put some pieces together and put some commentary together and try to make sense of things. And I have made some sense of things, but I think maybe I'm missing some important information as well. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys with some more deep dive soon.